I'm a cave rescue diver. I found something that haunts me forever. Jake had always felt at home surrounded by the shadows of deep, dark caves. The thrill of diving beneath the surface, the taste of salt on his lips mingling with the damp, earthy smell of rock and water below, nothing compared to the adrenaline surging through his veins. But one fateful dive would change everything. It was a routine mission, rescuing a lost explorer deep in the heart of Devil's Cave, where the water flowed like black ink. As he descended, a sense of dread crawled up his spine. Strange things happen in the murk. Whispers echo and strange lights flicker, like the cave itself was trying to whisper secrets to him, and Jake never bought into those local legends. But that day, as he drove deeper, it felt like something was watching him. The darkness was thick, wrapping around him like a shroud. He could hear his own heartbeat, a heavy drum against the silence. It made his palms sweat. Then he found it, a dark, jagged entrance, nestled between immense stone walls. He could barely make out what lay beyond, but a cold chill ran through him, suffocating. Something about it called to him, beckoning him closer like a moth drawn to a flame. Jake hesitated, the little voice in his head screaming for him to turn back. But he had come too far to back down now. Just then, a flash, a flicker of movement in the shadows. He gasped, brothers of fear and curiosity battling within him. The sensation of a tight chest fueled him forward. What was lurking in that black void? Was it the explorer? Was it something worse? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. He pushed through the murky darkness until he felt that cold wetness of something alive, brushing against his arm. Panic surged like fire through his bloodstream. He turned and screamed, but the cave swallowed his voice whole. The sensation of dread deepened as he spotted glimmers of treasure buried in the shadows. But with every ounce of hope, a fear lingered there, something sinister lurking behind the promise of discovery. What had he unearthed that day, and why did it feel so terribly wrong? As he reached for the treasure, his heart thundered in his ears. Something cold and clammy seized his hand and he was yanked back, a guttural growl echoing in the depths of the cave. Jake's mind raced. What had he found down there, and was he truly ready to confront the consequences? The grip tightened around Jake's wrist, pulling him backward through the water. The creature, or whatever it was strong, stronger than anything he had faced in years of diving. Panic clawed at him as he struggled to get a hold on the rocky floor of the cave. But it was like trying to grasp smoke, the slick surface offered no purchase. He kicked with all his might, desperate for the surface. His lungs screamed for air, but he couldn't let this thing pull him under. Jake twisted, fighting against the inexorable force. It was a primal instinct, as urgent as any gut feeling he'd ever felt. And then he saw it. It wasn't just anything lurking in the dark. The thing was humanoid in shape but distorted, tendrils of shadow spiraling from its body like smoke. Its eyes glowed an unnatural green, and as it bore down on him, a chill seized his heart. The whispers he had dismissed earlier echoed in his mind, now merging with the sounds of the cave, a cacophony crashing together, telling him he was not alone. Let go. He gasped, the words barely escaping his lips as he writhed against its grip. But the thing wasn't listening. It tightened its hold, dragging him further into the abyss. In a sudden surge of adrenaline, Jake remembered the diving knife tucked at his waist. With shaky hands, he fumbled for it. The blade felt alien in his grip, but he thrashed wildly, cutting through the cold water until he felt resistance, metal against flesh. The creature recoiled with a guttural hiss, releasing its hold just enough for him to break free. That he shot for the surface, lungs burning as he burst through the water. But the relief was short-lived. The cave entrance loomed above him, vast and menacing, the darkness split into shadows that danced like wraiths at the edges of his vision. Breathless, Jake clambered toward the light as fast as he could. Yet, the fear inside him had transformed into a deep dread. He had escaped, but at what cost? He could still feel the chill of that grip on his wrist, a reminder of something terrible lurking in the caverns. What had he disturbed down there? As he crawled onto the rocky bank, his heart raced like a wild horse. He coughed and gasped, trying to catch his breath, yet every inhale felt like a struggle for life. He was out, but that thing wasn't done with him. No, it would come for him again, he was sure of it. Jake glanced back at the cave entrance, its mouth gaping as if it held secrets only it could understand. The whispers grew louder again in his mind, urgent, pleading. He needed answers. But every instinct warned him to stay away. He didn't know if he had the courage to confront whatever awaited him back inside. Was he willing to risk his life again, to face the horrors hidden in the darkness, or would curiosity drive him right back to that nightmare? As he stood trembling at the edge, caught between fear and the need to uncover the truth, one question pressed on him, echoing in the silence. What had he awakened, and would he ever truly escape its grasp? Jake stumbled back from the cave, his heart pounding as he scanned the coastline. The sun hung low, casting ominous shadows across the rocky beach. Waves crashed against the shore, almost mocking his fear. The creature had released him, but its presence loomed large in his mind. He could still feel its icy grip and hear the faint whispers that beckoned him toward the dark water. He shook his head, trying to clear the haze of terror clouding his thoughts. He knew he should run. Get as far from that cave as possible. But the nagging urge to return in search of answers pulled at him like an anchor. What if the creature was a protector of some hidden truth? What if it held the key to something he'd never known? Think, Jake, think. He muttered to himself. The dive team had often talked about the lore surrounding these caves, the stories of unearthly beings and lost treasures. Tales passed down by locals who warned explorers about the dangers lurking beneath the surface. But he had always dismissed them as just that, stories, yet now, every word echoed in his mind, swirling in a chaotic mix of fear and intrigue. He needed to know. What had he awoken? The calling was so strong it felt like a part of him was already wading back into those dark waters. He couldn't deny the thrill that accompanied the fear. Every decision felt monumental. Staring at the cave's mouth, he sensed a pulse emanating from the abyss, an invitation wrapped in a shroud of uncertainty. Jake! A voice called out behind him, shattering his reverie. It was Lisa, his dive partner, urgency laced in her tone as she sprinted toward him. We thought you were gone. What happened down there? Her eyes widened as she took in his pale face and the signs of struggle etched across his body. He started, but the words tangled in his throat. There was something alive in there. The dread returned, creeping along the nape of his neck. He could see the questions bubbling in her mind. Jake took a deep breath. And I heard it, he confessed. Lisa shook her head, disbelief mingling with concern. You need to report this. Call the others. We can't risk that whatever it is getting loose. Loose? The word resonated like thunder in his ears. Did she understand what he was saying? It was deeper than that. Whatever he faced was tied to ancient mysteries, and he couldn't just walk away without knowing more. Jake, it's dangerous. She urged, reaching for his arm. We don't know what we're dealing with. If it pulled you underwater, it could be a threat. I know. The conflicting emotions surged within him, battling for control. A need to protect weighed heavy in his gut, mixing with the lure of discovery. But what if it leads to something greater? Don't you feel it? Lisa looked at him, her brow furrowed. She understood that spark of adventure, albeit buried beneath layers of caution. We can't go back in without backup. I'll help, but we need a solid plan. A plan. The words overlaid the chaotic slam of his heartbeat. If they went back together, they could face whatever was lurking below. But would they be stepping into the jaws of death or uncovering secrets that time had kept hidden? With determination rekindled, Jake nodded slowly, the choice made. All right. We gather the team, but we're going back. I have to know. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the cave seemed to grow darker and more inviting. An unspoken question loomed over them: what awaited them in the depths of the water? The whistle of the wind held a new urgency, an echo of secrets waiting to be revealed. Jake and Lisa rushed back to the dinghy, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The waves splashed at the bow as they fought against the rising tide. Gritting his teeth, Jake clutched the edge of the boat, the memory of the creature's cold touch still lingering like a bad dream. Get the rest of the team. We need to dive before night falls, he instructed, his voice a blend of excitement and dread. Lisa nodded, her expression serious as she grabbed the radio. Minutes felt like hours as they awaited their crew. Each second amplified the tension coiling in Jake's gut. The sun burned lower, the horizon transitioning to hues of molten orange and deep purple, casting an eerie light over the rocky coastline. No one should go into that cave alone, Lisa warned, her eyes scanning their surroundings as she spoke into the radio. We don't know what we're up against. They'd understand if I told them, Jake insisted, but his voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. This isn't just another dive. If what I felt down there is real, it could change everything. Or it could end everything, she shot back. Before he could respond, the radio crackled to life. Hey! We're here. What is going on? It was Mark, one of the more experienced divers on the team, his voice a mix of curiosity and worry. Mark! Grab the others. Jake had an incident down by the cave, Lisa said urgently. He thinks there is something hazardous in the water. I'll grab Jenna and Alex. Hang tight. The radio went silent, replaced by the relentless sound of waves crashing against the boat. Jake peered at the cave, its dark mouth gaping like a maw in the fading light. A shiver snaked down his spine. From the depths came an unsettling echo, a chorus of whispers that sent chills racing across his skin. He focused hard, reminding himself that this was about discovery, not just fear. What if we take a different approach? Lisa suggested, trying to keep the mood light. We could use sonar, get a read on what's really down there before jumping in. Or we could end up looking at a blank screen while something in that cave just waits for us, Jake replied, the tension rising again. Lisa shot him a look, a mixture of exasperation and understanding. Just then, Mark reappeared, flanked by Jenna and Alex, the tension palpable among them. What's the plan? Mark asked, glancing at the cave. Jake inhaled deeply, his resolve solidifying. We go down together. We scout the cave, see what's inside, then report back. No heroics this time. Jake, you know how things can spiral out of control down there, Jenna cautioned, gripping her gear tightly. We need full transparency. If there's something dangerous, we have to prioritize survival. Right. But we also have a responsibility to see this through, Jake replied, his gaze unwavering as he met each of their eyes. With a collective nod, they prepared their gear, heartbeats syncing with the approaching darkness. Moments later, they slipped beneath the waves, diving into the abyss. The water enveloped them like a shroud, cold and still. Visibility dropped quickly, the only light came from their headlamps, illuminating faint glimmers of life darting away from the unsettling shadows. As they descended closer to the cave opening, the whispers grew louder, coiling around them like an echo of lost souls. Each pulse of sound felt personal, tugging at their innermost fears. Jake's heart hammered in his chest. It wasn't just the mystery of the cave that threatened them, it was the unidentifiable force that seeped from its depths. Suddenly, a shape darted past, deeper in the cave. The group froze, eyes wide. What was that? Alex whispered, his voice muffled in the water. Jake glanced back at his team, the thought racing through his mind, what if they truly weren't alone? Just as the realization set in, the cave's entrance loomed larger, dark and inviting. What awaited them beyond that threshold? They hesitated, caught between the desire for revelation and the instinct to flee. The whispers surged, louder now, as if urging them forward or warning them to turn back. Would they answer the call, or succumb to the terror hidden just beyond their sight? The cave yawned wide, a dark chasm ready to swallow them whole. Jake felt the weight of water pressing in from all sides, his heartbeat muffled by the deep, rhythmic pulse of the ocean. Each wordless whisper seeped into his consciousness, a creeping dread knitting itself into the very fabric of his thoughts. Let South stick close. Stay together, he signaled, pointing his flashlights toward the gaping opening. The others nodded, their faces illuminated momentarily by the harsh beams of light, revealing anxious expressions and taut jaws. As they moved forward, the cave expanded, walls slick with moisture and glistening like the scales of some giant beast. Jenna's flashlight caught something shimmering against the rocky surface. Was it just slivers of quartz, or something more sinister? An uneasy silence hovered over their group as they inched deeper into the darkness, the whispers now a cacophony clamoring for their attention. What if Alex muttered, cutting himself off as he glanced behind, the feeble beam of his light failing to penetrate the gloom. I don't like this, guys. This isn't just about us anymore, Jake replied, his voice steady despite the fear simmering beneath. We need to know what we're dealing with. Jenna's beam flickered and then died, plunging her into shadow. For a moment, panic surged through her. She was lost in the suffocating darkness. Jake! I can't see. She gasped, her oxygen tank hissing in the silence. Calm down. Use your backup. Jake urged, stretching a hand toward her, feeling the water tremble in response to their unease. And then, as though the cave itself were responding to their dread, the whispers swelled into a biting wail, filling their ears with urgency. As Jenna fumbled for her spare light, something shifted in the dark ahead. It was swift, too swift for the beam to catch it clearly. An oily, shadowy figure darted just beyond reach, a flicker that left them breathless. What was that? Mark hissed, instinctively inching backward. No time to back out now. Jake shouted, half hysterical but unwilling to cower. They had come too far for retreat. The mission, the thrill it all spiraled in a feverish rush within him, with Jenna's light reigniting, whatever had moved through the shadows vanished, leaving only a lingering taste of fear. But the atmosphere in the cave shifted, growing thick and oppressive. The whispers took on shapes, curling around their minds, each echo twisting into a question that pricked at their sanity: who dares enter? Guys, over there. Lisa pointed, her voice shaky but resolute. The current amplified the tension, as they all turned to see a glimmering object embedded in the wall near the cave's edge. Something's there, Jake whispered, the excitement edging out his fear. But as he stepped closer, the figure of that dark shape appeared again. This time, it lingered at the periphery, scraping against the walls, drawing closer. Jake, get back! Jenna screamed, but the words felt insufficient against the impending dread. With a split-second decision, he lunged towards the object, reaching out to grasp it. It was smooth, chilled, and covered in an eerie film, yet thrumming with an energy he couldn't explain. Just as he pulled it free from the rock, the surrounding water exploded with frigid turbulence, and the figure surged forward into their circle of light, revealing grotesquely vivid features that were far too human yet horrifically distorted. The scream erupted from Jake's throat, silencing everything else, an unearthly wail that echoed through the cave before being drowned by the rush of swirling water. He staggered back, the object slipping from his hand and vanishing into the dark depths below. Get us out. Now! He shouted, panic clawing through his chest. The creature advanced, swirling shadows framed by their flickering lights as they scrambled toward the cave's exit, but Jake knew, as darkness closed in behind them, they had only scratched the surface of whatever lay within those walls. He felt its presence lingering, watching, waiting. What fate awaited them outside the safety of the water? What horrors had they awakened? The questions gnawed at him, building a gnawing dread in his gut. As they burst back into the light of the ocean, panting and shocked, the creature's whispering began to dim, but the sensation of being watched never left. And as they clung to the sides of the dinghy, hearts racing, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. What had they truly unleashed? The boat rocked gently on the waves, the sunlight glinting off the water, a stark contrast to the terror that throbbed in Jake's chest. They were alive, yet the taste of salt was suddenly rancid in his mouth. He stared into the depths where darkness still loomed, hungry and vast. What was that thing? Jenna breathed, her voice trembling. Mark gripped the edge of the dinghy, his knuckles white. I don't want to talk about it. Can we just get out of here? Alex, still wide-eyed, struggled to steady his breathing. But what if it's still down there? What if it enough? Jake snapped, his urgency boiling over. We need to get back to the shore and figure out what the hell just happened. We can't leave it like this. Lisa shook her head slowly, trembling. But the object, it felt alive. Like it wasn't just a rock but something more. Something cursed. Jake glanced back at the cave, the entrance gaping like a mouth ready to consume them whole again. We're not going back now. Whatever that was, we need to regroup. Get our heads straight. As they motored away, the whispers receded, but Jake felt them lingering in the corners of his mind. They were tied to him, gnawing away at his sanity. Each wave, the gentle lapping, the mighty crash seemed to carry a faint echo of those voices calling him back. When they reached the beach, they stumbled onto solid ground, dragging the boat onto the sand like a lifeline. The sun blazed overhead, but the chill of the ocean still clung to Jake's skin. He felt nauseous, a whirlpool of adrenaline and fear swirling in his gut. Let us sit down, Jenna suggested, her voice firm yet shaky. They gathered in a tight circle, clinging to familiarity. What the hell did we find? Mark asked, breaking the heavy silence. Jake clenched his jaw. Maybe it's what we didn't find that matters. That thing, it felt like it knew us. Like it was waiting for us to get to it. Lisa shivered. You think it's still out there? Watching us? Something isn't right, Alex murmured, glancing around as if the shadows of the trees were alive. It's like it followed us. I can't shake this feeling. Enough. Jake snapped again, feeling anger spike through the tension. We need to refocus. We report this. We have to inform the authorities. Do you really think they'll believe us? Mark challenged, arching an eyebrow. It'll take more than a story to convince them we just saw some horror. Jenna gestured to the ocean, urgency in her eyes. We need to figure it out ourselves. Because if we don't, what if it comes back? What if it reaches out to someone else? What if it finds a way? Jake felt his heartbeat thundering in response to her words. She was right. They stumbled into something bigger than them. But before he could voice his determination to uncover the truth, a sound pierced the air. A guttural growl resonated from the direction of the cave like an invitation or warning. Jake's blood ran cold as they turned collectively, eyes wide, hearts pounding in unison. The air around them electric with dread. What was that? Lisa whispered, her body rigid as if bracing for an impact. Whatever it is, Jake replied, gathering his strength, we're not done with it yet. We have to go back. The resolve firmed in Jake's chest, yet doubt lurched like a wave from the depths. What awaited them behind the darkness? They had barely scratched the surface, and the grim notion loomed larger than they could imagine. But deep inside, Jake felt that this return was a call, a summons they could not refuse. What awaited them in the shadows of the cave? Would they face the creature again, or would they uncover something even more terrifying? The sun hung low in the sky as they made their way back towards the cave, shadows stretching long on the sand. Each step felt heavier, as if invisible hands were clutching their ankles, dragging them back with a force that whispered of dread. Jenna walked beside Jake, her eyes darting nervously to and fro, as if the very ground beneath them might shift. Are we really doing this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake paused, scanning their surroundings, acutely aware of the danger that lay ahead. We have to. If we don't confront it, that sound, that growl, will haunt us forever. Mark looked back towards the ocean, its calm surface utterly betraying the chaos beneath. What if it's worse than we think? His voice trembled. What if it's waiting for us with plans of its own? Every muscle in Jake's body tensed at the implication, but they pressed on. They crossed the rocky shore and drew nearer to the cave's gaping maw, its blackness insatiable. A part of him longed for the safety of daylight, the warmth of the sun, but a flicker of curiosity squirmed beneath the surface, urging him onward. Lisa was the first to break the silence, her voice taut. What if it doesn't just want to watch us? What if it wants something from us? Each word hung thick in the air, laced with foreboding. Jake turned to her, desperate to find some semblance of reassurance. We'll face whatever it is together, he promised, but even to his own ears, the bravado felt hollow. They stepped into the cave, the darkness swallowing them whole. The air was colder here, thick with the scent of damp earth. Jake's heart hammered in his chest, each thud echoing in the stillness. He turned on his flashlight, the beam slicing through the void and illuminating the rough cavern walls. Strange markings danced along the rock, swirling in patterns that felt alive. What is that? Alex breathed, pointing shakily at the writing, his voice barely a whisper. Jake strained to see, feeling an overwhelming urge to approach it. It's like a language, but not one I recognize. As they studied it, the air shifted, growing heavier, as if the cave itself were breathing in anticipation. A slow, guttural sound reverberated through the stone, causing the hair on the back of Jenna's neck to stand on end. Do you hear that? She whispered, straining to detect any semblance of a human presence. Yes, Mark replied, his voice now barely above a hush. And it's getting louder. The shadows deepened, warping around them, but Jake held his ground. Each second felt stretched, like an elastic band poised to snap. We have to keep moving, he urged, we can't let fear take control. With a collective breath, they pressed deeper into the cave, each footfall echoing ominously. The sound pulsed like a heartbeat, throbbing with intent. Suddenly, an echo ricocheted off the walls. Jake froze, heart racing. What was that? Jenna's grip tightened on his arm. Something followed us in, it's here. Before he could respond, the ground began to tremble, the very cave shifting as if it were alive. A low growl began to swell around them, echoing in the chamber, mingling with their heavy breaths. Then, out of the shadows, a figure emerged. Hideous and twisted, its eyes glinted with hunger. It was more than just a creature, it was something beyond comprehension, pulsing with raw fury and an insatiable thirst for the unknown. Jake stood rooted to the spot, panic flooding through his veins. What do we do? Alex screamed, filled with a terror that pulsed in sync with the creature's growl. Jake's mind raced, realization dawning. We have to run. Now. As they turned to flee, the shadows stretched and clawed at them, the growl escalating into a roar. They bolted through the cave, feeling the darkness breathing down their necks as if the very walls were closing in, but the creature wasn't done with them yet. Long tendrils reached out from the shadows, grasping, pulling. What awaited them outside? Would they escape the curse that loomed over them, or would darkness claim them all? The true terror was only beginning to unravel. The panic surged as they sprinted deeper into the cave, breathless and desperate. The creature's growl reverberated like thunder, and Jake could feel its presence behind them, oppressive and primal. Shadows darted along the walls, warping into grotesque shapes, and with every footfall, a sense of urgency twisted tighter in his chest. Why did we think this was a good idea? Alex shouted, gasping for air. His voice echoed back, mocking, mingling with the terrifying growl that pulsed through the cavern. Just keep moving. Jake yelled, trying to drown out the rising tide of fear. Focus on the entrance. But the darkness was alive. It seemed to crawl and wrap around their ankles, dragging them down. Jenna stumbled, her foot catching on a jagged rock, and for a breathless moment, Jake felt his heart stop as he watched her fall. Help! she cried, panic sharp in her voice. Without thinking, Jake spun to grab her arm, just as tendrils of shadow shot from the walls, snapping at her heels with intent. He yanked her upright, his grip firm, but the minute delay had cost them. The growl morphed into a roar, a sound that resonated deep within the very marrow of their bones, awakening a wild terror that rendered thoughts of escape almost impossible. "It's too strong!" Mark shouted, eyes wild as he stumbled into the wall, his flashlight flickering ominously. A booming crash echoed, shaking the cave, sending vibrations through their bodies. The ceiling above them quivered, small shards of rock falling like rain. Jake's mind raced. They needed a plan, anything to escape this dark death trap. "Jenna! Stay close!" he barked, urging her forward. They were only a few yards from freedom, but each step felt as if time elongated, stretching their fear like a taut wire. The growl morphed again, shifting into a guttural chortle as though the creature relished the chase, taunting them. Mark turned, eyes wide, and yelled, "It's calling for backup. We have to get out before it brings more." Jake could almost taste the adrenaline burning his throat as they hurried through the twisting passages, dodging the grasping shadows snapping at their heels. Was it too late? A dim light flickered ahead. Freedom. They stumbled toward it, instincts propelling them even as exhaustion clawed at their limbs. Just a few more steps, just a few more. Suddenly, the ground shook violently again, and a slab of stone ahead collapsed, blocking their escape route. Panic surged again, and Jenna screamed, "No! No! We're trapped!" Jake's mind raced, 1,000 different solutions flying out the window. The walls pressed in, the creature's growls still echoing. He turned to the others, desperate. "There has to be another way out." "Look!" Lisa shouted, pointing to a narrow opening off to the side, hidden in the chaos of the cave, an ancient entryway, half obscured by rock and shadow. "We can go there." "Are you nuts?" Mark countered, his eyes darting. "That could lead us deeper into its lair." Taking a shuddering breath, Jake felt the weight of the moment. "We're running out of time." Jenna tugged at his arm. "We go there or we don't escape at all." Afraid for her, and sensing a collective will to survive, Jake nodded. "All right." On three, heavy footsteps resonated in the cave, the growl growing louder, closer. 1, 2, 3. They dashed toward the opening, the shadows howling around them. Just as they dove inside, Jake sensed a rush of air behind him, something massive. He turned just in time to see a monstrous tendril lunge, missing them by mere inches. They tumbled into the tight space, gasping for air, their hearts pounding as the cave's growls faded to an ominous silence. They could only hear their racing breaths now, and the sound of something large scraping against the cave wall behind them. Prowling, waiting, holding his flashlight up, Jake peered into the darkness of their new chamber. Strange shapes moved around them, buried beneath layers of dirt and debris, and he could feel the weight of something terrible looming. "What now?" Jenna whispered, trembling against him. Jake turned to face the narrow passage. Ahead, uncertainty sinking deep in his gut. "I don't know, but we have to find a way out before it finds us." As they ventured cautiously into the heart of the cave, a sudden chill swept through the air. They weren't alone. Something ancient and wicked stirred just beyond their reach, its presence thickening the shadows, and possibly, it knew their darkest fears and was ready to exploit them. What lay deeper in the darkness? Could they escape the wrath of whatever dwelled there, or would they become just another echo in the cave? The air was stale, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something more sinister, a rotting musk that clung to their throats. Jake strained to listen, but all he could hear was the rapid pulse of his heart hammering in his ears, drowning out everything else. "Do you feel that?" Lisa murmured, her voice a faint wisp in the steely silence. The group huddled close, illuminated by Jake's shaky flashlight, shadows dancing along the walls like malicious spirits. "What?" Mark snapped, teeth gritted, his nerves frayed. "You mean the fact that something is hunting us?" "Shoo!" Jenna hissed, too loud. "We need to stay quiet." The crunch of gravel beneath their boots felt like thunder in the oppressive quiet. The shadows around them warped, as if something was lurking just out of sight. Jake squinted into the dimness. Was it just his imagination, or was there movement? "Let us keep moving," he urged, setting his jaw. But before he could take a step, the flashlight flickered once, twice before plunging them back into near darkness. Panic twisted in his gut. "Come on," he urged, tapping the light, but it sputtered again, sending sparks of concern racing through the group. "Jake, what are we going to do?" Jenna asked, voice trembling. "This isn't just a cave, there's something else here." His stomach nodded as he turned, heart racing. He had no replies, only questions of his own. What transformed this space into a hunting ground? Suddenly, a haunting echo ricocheted off the cavern walls, a deep, guttural sound that chilled them all to the bone. "That's not the same growl," Alex whispered, his eyes wide with dread. "It's different. Simon, let us go." Jake pulled the group toward the only other passage they could see, more a gap than an opening, jagged and treacherous. "We don't have time to second-guess." They squeezed through, scraping their arms against sharp stone, breaths coming in quick bursts of fear. As they crawled into the tight, narrowing passage, shadows flickered. Just then, they heard a low hiss, and not from their own throats. "Did you hear that?" Lisa whispered, barely able to form the words. But there was no time to respond. A rush of wind whooshed through the tunnel, and Jake felt an undeniable presence, like a breath from the darkness, chilling him to his core. He shot a glance back at the other three, each face masked with fear. "We need to push through this. We can't let it trap us." Suddenly, shadows formed a swirling mass ahead, as though the cave was alive, weaving in on itself, threatening to close them in again. Just as they stepped further, the ground beneath them trembled violently. Dust and gravel rained down from the walls like a warning. "Run!" he shouted, sprinting ahead. The others followed, their feet pounding in frantic rhythm against the stone floor. They plunged deeper, propelled by chaos, praying for clarity with every desperate gasp. Ahead, he noticed streaks of light filtering through the cracks in the stone. Hope. But the shadows behind them roared, the sound like a monstrous beast awakening from slumber, chasing them with a hunger Jake couldn't comprehend. Just as they neared the light, the floor dropped away. A gaping chasm opened before them, impossibly wide, deceptively deep. It blocked their escape. "Now what?" Mark yelled, hovering close to the edge. "We have to find something to cross it." Jake shouted back, adrenaline coursing through him. As they all scrabbled back from the opening, the shadows surged, clawing at their consciousness. A cliff adorned with dark stone rims led to pitch-black water below. The roar behind them grew louder, aflame with a chilling promise of pursuit. "We're trapped!" Jenna screamed, frustration bubbling over as they were forced to the edge. Then, amidst the chaos, Jake inhaled sharply. He spotted something, a glint tucked away in the shadows on the opposite side. Was it hope or deception? "Wait, I see something." He pressed forward, heart racing. "Stay close." But as he leaned closer to glimpse the shimmering object, a terrifying howl erupted from the depths of the cave, drowning out their hopes. "Jake!" Alex shouted, eyes wide with horror. "What?" He spun around, his gaze hitting the faces of his friends, all of them frozen, staring into the dark. In that moment, the shadows surged and somebody screamed. What had they awakened in this vast darkness? Could they truly escape, or were they about to step into a darker nightmare than they ever imagined? Jake felt the weight of the cave's darkness hanging around him like a shroud. The growl was a reminder that they were not alone, that something monstrous stirred in the shadows just within reach of their flickering lights. He stared into the black abyss, pulse racing, heart pounding like a drum. "Stay together!" he shouted against the chaos, his voice trembling but firm. The team huddled close, their breaths quickening as the growl morphed into an eerie whisper, wrapping around them, squeezing the air from their lungs. Was this the end? No, this cannot be how it ends, he thought, his grip tightening on his flashlight. The shimmer he had seen earlier sparked hope again. "Guys, we need to get to that glint, it's our only chance." But as he turned to signal the others, an echoing scream jolted through the cave, sending dread down his spine. He watched as shadows enveloped Alex, tendrils of darkness sweeping around him like a predator ready to strike. Alex's eyes were wide with terror, the light from his flashlight flickering, breaking like a whispered promise. "No!" he roared, but the cave had taken him, stealing him into the depths. "Jake! We have to go!" Jenna screamed, panic-stricken, pulling him toward the chasm. Mark and Lisa were wide-eyed, breaths ragged, fear mingling in the thick air. "What now?" Lisa urged, glancing back where the shadows writhed like a living thing. "Follow me." Without waiting for another thought, Jake lunged forward, desperate to reach the cascade of light. He could feel the dark presence behind them, hungry and relentless. They scrambled toward the edge, adrenaline fueling their every movement. Jake caught sight of what lay beyond the chasm, a weathered beam, old and rough, jutting from the far side, stretching long like a bridge into the light. "We can use that," he shouted over his shoulder, hope igniting in his chest. "Are you crazy?" Mark yelled back. "We'd be risking everything just to reach it. Do you want to wait for it to come for us?" Jake retorted, his tone steely. "There's no choice." With that, he leaped across the gap, feet scrambling for purchase as he landed heavily on the beam. It swayed beneath his weight, but it held. He turned, extending his hand back toward his terrified friends. "Come on. You have to trust me." Lisa nudged Jenna forward, and in a rush fueled by panic, they followed Jake. Mark hesitated, glancing back at the darkness, but as the growl intensified into a furious roar, he too pushed off the edge, joining his friends on the beam. Each heartbeat thundered in Jake's ears as they moved across the narrow path, the shadows swirling beneath them. The air felt charged, thick with a nameless terror, but they couldn't stop now. The beam trembled, but they were so close, just a few feet away from safety. With one last desperate push, they reached the other side, collapsing onto solid ground just as the cave erupted with fury behind them. The shadows clawed at the edges, reaching toward their light, but they were free. Panting, they pulled each other upright, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They turned to see the cave behind them, dark and foreboding, the whispers now a low buzzing, seething in angry frustration. Did we lose it?" Mark asked, breathless but steadying himself. "Not for long," Jake replied, heart pounding. "Whatever is down there, it wants something. It won't let us leave so easily." With an understanding nod, they moved away from the cave. Each step felt like a release from a nightmare, yet Jake sensed that the battle was far from over. They had unleashed something ancient and hungry, and it wouldn't forget. "We need to leave this place. Gather our thoughts and the team," Jake said firmly, determination settling like a shield in his heart. "We'll confront this together. We will not let it win." As they stepped toward the sunlight, an odd calm blanketed him. They had survived the darkness, but what lay ahead would require all of them. It was not just about survival anymore, they were on the brink of uncovering secrets that could change everything. And Jake was ready to face whatever shadows would come. As they reached the surf, he turned, sinking the burden of the cave deep into his heart. "This isn't the end, it's just the beginning." They looked out at the rolling waves, the sun shimmering over the water, and though it felt peaceful, Jake knew the fight was still ahead. Stay united. Stay vigilant. It was a moment of calm before the storm, and they wouldn't turn back, for the darkness would always return. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss our next exclusive story. This is the moment to show your support for the channel. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and make sure everyone sees this thrilling conclusion. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about what Jake and his team might face next. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this heart-pounding adventure.